This story is titled, My Parents Gave My Apartment to My Brother, Then Came Begging When I Stopped Paying. Hi, everyone. Before we dive a quick favor. If you enjoy content like this, please hit the subscribe button. It is free, supports the channel, and make sure you never miss out on amazing video. Alright, let us get started. Alright, buckle up, because what I'm about to share is wild. My name's James, and honestly, never in a million years did I think I'd end up in a mess like this. But here we are. It all kicked off around 6 months ago, and I've been stewing about it ever since. So here's how it went down. I'm 28 now, and I've always prided myself on being independent. I put in the work, got through college, landed a decent job in marketing, and eventually managed to rent a place of my own. Nothing flashy, just a modest 2-bedroom in a decent part of town. But it was mine. I paid the bills, handled everything myself, and turned it into my own little safe haven. Now, I come from a family of 5, my parents, my younger brother Kyle, who's 24, and our little sister Emily, who's 22. Growing up, we were a pretty tight bunch. Sure, we had our share of arguments, like any family, but at the end of the day, we stuck together. Fast forward to now, and that closeness? It has definitely faded. Kyle, well, he's always been the kind of guy who can't quite get his act together. He dropped out of college, works a dead-end job at a bar down the street, and spends most of his time gaming or hanging out with his fiancée, Jessica. They're both decent folks, but let's be real, they're far from responsible. They've been crashing at my parents' place for a while now, mainly because, surprise, surprise, they can't afford a place of their own. And my parents? They've always had a thing for playing favorites. I might be the oldest, but Kyle? He's the one they treat like gold. It has always felt like they believed he was destined for greatness, while I was just the guy who had to figure everything out the hard way. Anyway, one night I just sat down to dinner when my phone started ringing. It was Mom. I picked up, and right away I could hear something was off in her voice. She sounded tense, like she was trying to ease into delivering bad news. Hey, what's going on? Everything okay? I asked. She hesitated, then said, well, no, not really. You know Kyle and Jessica have been struggling, right? I said, yeah, I know. They've been living with you and Dad for a while now. Exactly, she replied. And we've been thinking. That's when she dropped the bomb. We were wondering if you'd consider letting them move into your apartment. I blinked in disbelief. Wait, what? Move into my apartment? Why on earth would they need to do that? She explained. Well, they just can't afford a place on their own right now, and we figured they could use more space. You're doing fine, right? You could always find somewhere else. Hold on. Let's pause right there. My apartment wasn't handed to me. I worked for it. I paid the rent every month with the money I earned. It wasn't some luxurious setup, but it was comfortable and it was my home. And now they expected me to hand it over just because Kyle and Jessica didn't want to pay for a place of their own? I was floored. You're seriously asking me to move out of the place I'm paying for so they can move in? Why can't they just find their own apartment like everyone else? And that's when it hit me even harder. This wasn't just about moving out. They also wanted me to keep paying the rent. That was the part that really got me. I was stunned. Mom tried to smooth it over, saying, you know how it is, James. They're going through a tough time. It's only temporary. We think this would really help them. I could feel the frustration boiling up inside me. Temporary? They wanted me to step aside for who knows how long, just so my brother, who was perfectly capable of getting a job and renting his own place, could crash in the spot I worked so hard to get. And my parents acted like I should just roll over and go along with it. I told her, I'm sorry, but I can't do that. I've been living here for over 2 years. I pay for it. I built my life here. I can't just give it up. She said, James, please. We think it's the right thing. You're the only one who can help them right now. That was it for me. I said a few more words. I was angry and felt completely ignored. So I hung up and sat there, thinking. There was no way I was letting them steamroll me like that. A few days went by, and then my parents called again, but this time, it wasn't a request. It was an announcement. Dad got on the phone and said, James, we've made a decision. Kyle and Jessica are going to move into your apartment next month. You'll need to find a new place. I stood there in disbelief. They were literally telling me to get out of the apartment I paid for, so my brother and his fiancée, who paid for nothing, could take over. I was furious, but I could tell they were serious. At this point, it wasn't even about Kyle. It was about control. They wanted to call the shots, and they didn't care how it affected me. I said, you've got to be kidding. This is my apartment. I pay rent. You can't just take it away from me. Dad came back with, you'll be fine. You're making decent money. This is what's best for everyone. That was the final straw. I started apartment hunting, but I wasn't in a rush. I wanted to take my time, find the right place. And when I eventually found a quiet one-bedroom just down the road, I took my time moving in, too. But here's where things really took a turn. My parents eventually called again, this time to ask about the rent money. That's when I knew they still expected me to cover it for Kyle and Jessica. But I had other plans. I didn't answer them right away. I figured I'd send them something, but not what they were expecting. I decided to write them a letter. And let me tell you, what I put in that envelope wasn't just emotional. It was a message they'd never forget. And no, they weren't just upset. This hit them on a whole other level. But if you want to know what was in that letter, well, you'll have to hang tight. Trust me, it'll blow your mind. I could not stop replaying the way my family had been treating me, like I had no say in anything, like I did not even have the right to push back. The more I thought about it, the more the anger bubbled up. But this time, I knew I needed to channel that rage into something smarter, something more deliberate. The very next day, I decided I would meet them halfway, or at least make it look that way. I would give them something, but it would be entirely on my terms. I picked up my phone and started typing out a message to Kyle. The words came out fast, sharper than I meant, but I let them stay that way. It was time they understood that I was not their personal ATM. I hit send. The message read, "Listen, Kyle, I know where your head's at, and I do get it. You're in a rough patch. I understand that. But here's the deal. You and Jessica are not the only ones facing challenges. I have busted my ass to get where I am, and I am not just going to keep bailing you out every time life throws you a curveball. I am not your fallback plan anymore. This is not how any of this works." He fired back almost immediately, and I swear, I could feel the tension through the screen. Kyle replied, "Are you kidding me right now? You're seriously going to pull this? You know Mom and Dad need help. This is what family is supposed to do. We look out for each other. I can't believe you're making this so hard. You've got the money. You've got the apartment. So what's the big deal?" I let out a long sigh. Of course. The guilt trip. The family loyalty card. I saw it coming from a mile away. But I was done being manipulated. I paused before replying. I needed to be precise, to say what I meant without giving him room to twist it back on me. "You've made your point," I wrote. "But let me make mine. I've been the one sacrificing year after year. I've put my plans on the back burner more times than I can count because of your screw-ups. I'm not doing it anymore. If this doesn't fit the story you want to tell about our family, that's your problem. I'm done being your safety net. If anything's going to change, it has to start with you. Stop expecting me to clean up your messes." My heart was pounding as I hit send. I had no clue what kind of fallout that message would bring, but I could feel it coming. I had just lit a fuse on something bigger. The next couple of days? Dead silent. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that lets you know something's brewing. I could practically feel the tension building in the air. I knew my family was hurt, and likely scrambling to come up with their next move. They weren't going to let this drop. Then the phone rang again. It was Mom. I let it go to voicemail. Not because I did not want to talk, but because I was waiting for whatever came next. This whole situation had turned into a chess match, and I was not about to make the first move again. Her voicemail came through a few seconds later. I hit play. "James," she began, her voice thick with frustration. "I really don't understand why you're doing this. You know Kyle and Jessica are in way over their heads. They've been struggling for months, and we've been trying our best to keep things running at home. I'm asking you for help, and all you're doing is being stubborn. This is family, James. You always said you'd be there when we needed you. We've barely asked for anything before, but you owe us. We've done so much for you. Please, don't turn your back on us now." That word, "oh," it landed like a slap across the face. I stood there, staring at the wall, feeling the weight of her words crash down on me. I didn't know how much longer I could keep standing my ground, but I had made up my mind. I was done being the pushover. They needed to understand that I was no longer the same guy they could walk all over. Then, just when I thought I had a handle on things, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a text from an unknown number. "Hey James, it's Jessica. Can we talk? I know you've been getting a lot of heat from the family," she continued, "but I want you to know I'm not behind any of this. I don't want to make things worse, but I think you deserve to know the truth." The truth? I stared at my phone, confused and a little suspicious. What truth was she talking about? I had no clue what I was about to walk into. I let out a breath and typed back, "Fine, but this better not be some kind of setup." Seconds later, she responded, "I promise. I just want to clear the air. Please meet me. I can't explain everything in a text." I hesitated. Something about the whole thing felt off. But at the same time, I could not help myself. I wanted to hear what she had to say. I agreed to meet her at a little coffee shop just a few blocks from my new apartment. When I walked in, I spotted Jessica sitting alone at a table in the back corner. She looked nervous, glued to her phone, eyes darting around the room. When she saw me, she gave a stiff smile, one that did not quite reach her eyes. "James, you came. Thanks for meeting me." I slid into the seat across from her without a word. I just stared for a moment, watching her try to play it cool. But I was not buying it. "All right," I said, leaning back, arms crossed. "You said you wanted to talk. So talk." She wrapped her hands around her coffee cup and took a long, shaky sip. Her voice was soft, careful, like every word had to be weighed before it left her mouth. "I know things have been tense," she said. "Between you and us, between everyone, really. And I know you've been angry about the apartment and the rent situation. You think," I cut in, my voice calm but laced with sarcasm, "you think I've just been a little upset? I was paying rent for that place. And then you and Kyle moved in, and not one person even said thank you. After all that, you seriously thought I was going to keep covering the costs while I was living somewhere else?" Her eyes widened just a little. I could see I'd struck a nerve. But she caught herself quickly and gave a faint nod. "I get it," she said. "I really do." Then she leaned in a bit, like she was trying to level with me. "But I need you to understand things from my perspective too. Mom and Dad, they didn't mean for things to end up like this." She paused, trying to find the right words. "It was only supposed to be temporary. They thought they'd get by without you. Obviously, that didn't go the way they expected." I nearly laughed right in her face. She was trying to soften the blow, act like it was all just some unfortunate misunderstanding, but I wasn't buying it. "They thought they didn't need me," I said, shaking my head. But the second things got tough, suddenly I was the solution again. Like I'm the only one in the world who's supposed to clean up after everybody else. They acted like I was the problem, like I owed it to everyone to just give in. "You all wanted me to keep paying for a place I don't even live in anymore, just so your fiancé and his wife could take over. That was the plan, wasn't it?" Jessica squirmed in her seat, clearly uncomfortable. "Look, James, No." I cut her off, holding up a hand. "Let me finish. This whole thing, it was a setup from the beginning, wasn't it? You needed a bigger space for Kyle and Rachel, so you figured I'd just step aside. And when things didn't go as planned, suddenly the responsibility fell back on me. You wanted me to keep paying rent for a place I no longer had a key to. Whatever happened to family helping family?" She dropped her eyes to the table, and for the first time, she actually looked guilty. But it didn't last. I don't want to make it sound like that's what happened, but... "Oh, come on," I snapped. "Give me a little credit, Jessica. I'm not an idiot. You all wanted me to keep covering the bills because Mom and Dad are too stubborn to admit they screwed up. They gambled with my place, and when I stopped paying, they threw a fit." She went quiet. I could tell she was trying to collect her thoughts. When she spoke again, her voice was gentler, but the undertone was still there, still that subtle push. "I get why you're upset. Really. But James, you're the one who's always been solid. You've always been the dependable one. Don't you think it's kind of your responsibility to help the family out? If you could just give a little." I cut her off cold. I slammed my hand against the table, not to scare her, but to make it clear I wasn't playing anymore. "I don't owe anyone anything," I said through clenched teeth. "Not after what you all pulled. And don't you dare try to guilt me with that family responsibility crap. You're not asking me to help. You're trying to dump your mess on me because no one else is willing to deal with it." She pulled back a little, clearly caught off guard, but not entirely ready to back down. "You're being too harsh. We need you, James. I need you." I could feel the heat rising in my chest again, but this time, I kept it in check. I leaned back, crossed my arms, and met her gaze head on. "I've done the whole family first thing. I've been over backwards. I've been the guy everyone runs to when stuff falls apart, but not anymore." Her face tensed for a second, like she wanted to argue, but she quickly regrouped. Her expression turned more serious, and she stared right at me. "Okay," she said, her voice firmer. "You're right. I can't force you to do anything. But don't forget this, James, when everything crashes and burns, it won't be me left to clean it up. It'll be you. And you're going to have to live with that." Her words hung in the air like smoke, thick and suffocating. They were meant to shake me, but they didn't. I just stared at her and said calmly, "Don't worry about me, Jessica. I've got my own life to sort out." She opened her mouth again, probably to squeeze out one last plea, but I didn't give her the chance. I stood up. "I'm not paying your bills. I'm not playing this game anymore." And just like that, I turned and walked out of the coffee shop, leaving her sitting there with nothing but her cold coffee and her excuses. As the cold air hit me outside, I felt something shift inside. I had a gut feeling that this wasn't the last time they'd try to pull me back in, but I also knew I was ready now. I was finally ready to cut ties, once and for all. Then my phone buzzed. A new message from Mom. "We really need your help with the rent, James. Things are getting worse. Please, we can't do this without you." I stared at it for a long second, and I felt that familiar anger starting to boil again. But this time, something inside me just snapped. That was it. I was finished. My whole life, I had been the fixer. The one who stepped in, who swallowed his pride, who bailed everyone else out. But I wasn't going to do it anymore. I wasn't going to be their safety net. I opened a new message and started typing. "I'm done. You and Dad made it clear I wasn't welcome. You kicked me out of my own apartment, then tried to guilt me into paying for something that was never mine to begin with. I'm not your fallback anymore. Don't contact me again." I hit send. And with that, a strange wave of relief washed over me. There was sadness in it too, of course there was, but deep down, I knew I'd done the right thing. I went through my contacts next, blocked Jessica from everything, deleted Kyle's number. No more drama, no more guilt, no more being the one who got dragged into their chaos. For the first time in months, it felt like a weight had finally been lifted off my chest. Was it going to be easy? No. Cutting family out of your life never is. But it was the only way to protect myself. I couldn't keep letting them use me. I deserved better. Just as I was about to shut my phone off, one last message came in. This time, it was from Jessica. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to push you this far. I don't want to lose you." I sat there, staring at the screen. For a moment, I actually thought about replying. But then I remembered all of it. The lies, the pressure, the way they treated me like nothing more than a wallet with a pulse. I deleted the message without responding. I was not going back. And they weren't coming with me. Still, a small part of me couldn't help but wonder, did I do the right thing? So tell me, what do you think? Was I wrong for cutting them off completely? Or was I finally standing up for myself after being walked on for too long? Let me know in the comments below.